Welcome, everyone, to this month's edition of the SciCommers Mentor Chat Series. We are honored to have with us Dr. Robert White II, an educator, legal analyst, and pastor with over 25 years of professional experience. And he brings a wealth of knowledge and experience at the intersection of education, civil rights, community organizing, community engagement, and spirituality. So a little bit about our group and our online community. SciCommers is an online science communication collective, and it's primarily composed of scientists, engineers, and science communicators. And we span across a range of career stages, including undergraduates, graduates, postdoctoral researchers, early practitioners, and faculty members. And together, we all come together. We're dedicated to improving science communication skills and engaging the public. So whether you're a scientist or an engineer or a social scientist like myself, we are here for you and we want to be actively involved in your career, regardless of your institutional affiliation. And the goal is to foster diversity and broad participation. A little bit of history about the SciCommers group. It began at NPR and was founded by Joe Palca, who's by training a PhD scientist, and he later they transitioned the reins to us at Boston University's College of Communication. So originally the group started at NPR, and now it is being managed at Boston University. So the community is open to anybody who is actively engaged in science or engineering, no matter your training level, and we're here to help you. So we're taking public relations in our hands, and we're trying to help make it better for all of our communities. So this event today is called a Mentor Chat Series, and it's a key program that we offer through the SciCommers, and it will be held on a monthly basis online. This is the first one for this year, and we are really excited to have Dr. White with us today. So I will pass it off to Dr. White, who will talk to us about TACK, the four elements of community resource development and engagement. So kick us off, Dr. White.
All right, good afternoon, and thank you all for allowing me to come on this platform. And uh, I will begin with a quote from Edward Bernays. And he says, education is not securing its proper share of public interest. The public school system, materially and financially, is being adequately supported. There is marked eagerness for a college education and a vague aspiration for culture expressed in innumerable courses and lectures. The public is not cognizant of the real value of education and does not realize that education as a social force is not receiving the kind of attention it has the right to expect in a democracy. And those words were taken from Edward Bernays' book, Propaganda, which was written in 1928. My name is Robert White, and I've been a faculty member and activist and so forth over 30 some odd years. And I wanted to share with you some things that I learned in my extensive experience with academia, politics, with public relations, with business, and with so forth. And a lot of the of today's presentation would just be autobiographical because I think my life is exemplary of some of the factors that are affecting our society today. And I'm very honored and very humbled to share this time with you. We're currently on lockdown at my university because of some threats that were called in, and I have a officer here with me that I guess some faculty have to have protection or whatever. But so if you hear a radio go off or something, don't worry about it. So what is TACK? It is actually an acronym which stands for a paradigm that I created that uh, identifies four elements of political organizing. Okay. And the TACK stands for trust, acceptance, consistency, and knowledge. Those are four very critical areas that should be considered when trying to build any public relations model to where you're trying to do two things. And these are things historically that educators don't know anything about. And that is affecting the outcome of an election and also influencing the passage or failure of legislation. So when we talk about political organizing is different than advocacy, is different than it just community organizing and so forth. Political organizing has an end to it that is qualitative and quantitative. And the qualitative and quantitative is that either you win or lose. We're not about making a good show. We're not about giving it a good try. We're not about having a good showing. We can measure whether we have won or lost a battle by whether the person that we want is elected or whether the legislation that we want or the policy that we want adopted is approved or denied. Okay. So a little bit about myself. I'm from Tuskegee, Alabama, home of Tuskegee Institute, home of the Commodores as well. So if you don't know one, you know the other. This is the place where Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver came together to build an enterprise that still exists today in Tuskegee University. And also, Tuskegee is the birth of two movements. Both have not been, in my opinion, properly and adequately identified. Tuskegee is the birth of the voting rights movement. It exceeds or it predates Selma by several decades in its significance in voting rights. And it is also one of the, if not the epicenter for the birth of the public health movement, which took place, which was born in the Black Belt of Alabama right after slavery, and especially during the turn into Jim Crow during Reconstruction. So I was born actually on the campus of Tuskegee, Tuskegee Institute at John Andrew Hospital. And having grown up on the HBCU campus and having witnessed the things that I've witnessed and the unusual experience that I have, I bring to the table some things that I think that can help educators to understand the nature of the battle that they're in. A lot of my research, especially in developing TACK, which is TACK, trust, acceptance, consistency, and knowledge, came about as a result of COVID-19. And I want to ask the participants here today, what was your response to the COVID pandemic? When your university was shutting down and you knew things were going to change forever. I don't know when it hit you. I don't know when you were able to appreciate or grasp the reality that life was changing and that it probably would not ever be the same. What was your response as a scientist? Because we're all educators, we're all scientists, and we approach things using the scientific method. Well, what was your response? Okay. Specifically, what were the things that you did as a scientist to begin your protocols on addressing the changes that were coming? Because not only were the challenges posed by COVID-19, not only did it expose weaknesses in our government, weaknesses in our economy, it also exposed weaknesses at our universities. And what were those weaknesses? Could they have been avoided? And how, in what some people call the great COVID reset, how can we reset ourselves? So as the rock group The Who said with their song, "We Won't Get Fooled Again," we will be able to adequately and properly respond because we have done what Edward Bernays in his book Propaganda, and I hold his book up. One of the questions that Amo asked me to address was give some references to some books that can help us with this, and this is one of them. Okay, typically costs about, most of the books I'm going to recommend cost under $20, and most of them also were published before 1950. You can pick them up at the dime store. You can pick them up at the buy one get two free, table. But this is called Propaganda by Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays is the founder of the science of public relations. Okay, he was also a cousin of Sigmund Freud. But in here, he talks specifically about educators and public service people who have a terrible time dealing with the realities of public relations. And a lot of the failures of the university, especially during COVID, will have a lot to do with the failure to practice good political organizing and good public relations, both of which go hand in hand. Okay. So I got my teeth cut in politics with the labor unions. When I became an employee of Alabama State University as an academic advisor, I joined the American Federation of Teachers. And from there, I became an organizer with AFT and ultimately ended up becoming a committee member for the Central Alabama Labor Council, which merged me into the AFL-CIO. And that's where I learned my organizing from, labor unions. And from there, I participated in several of the local elections, one of which led to the ouster of a longtime incumbent in Montgomery. His name was Emory Farmer. We selected a candidate, and from the ground up, we built a mayoral empire. And so seeing something come to fruition from nothing really helps with the alchemical understanding of the political environments that we find ourselves in. So joining organizations is very important because those organizations have relationships that spill over into the economic and the political arena. From AFT, I actually, after creating and pretty much, I'll say facilitating a merger of the faculty and staff into one organizing unit at the university following Lech Walesa solidarity movement in Warsaw, Poland. We united the faculty and the staff, which means now the faculty and the janitors and the dietitians and the sanitation workers and the painters and the electricians, we're all one unit. We're not divided. We have a faculty senate, but the faculty senate goes to bat for the administrators, goes to bat also for the workers, right? And so that was one of the things one of the things I can credit to my participation in organized labor. And then I jumped ship with AFT and went to NEA and I got my law degree, and I became in-house legal counsel for the Alabama Education Association. And at the time, that was the most powerful political organization in Alabama, and had a chance to represent teachers and support workers throughout the state of Alabama. So having seen what I've seen working with that and having done what I've done, you learn some things about people, because really politics is about people, and having relationships really is the most valuable thing in building political power. So you can evaluate your political power by the diversity of the relationships that you have, okay? Because the more diverse your relationships, the more powerful your base is going to be. So building relationships in the different counties in the state, in the different cities in the state, amongst a high degree of diversity of teachers, principals, superintendents, cafeteria workers, janitors, and so forth. It gives you an understanding or a lay of the land by which you can reach masses of people, which is a benefit. I stayed at the Alabama Education Association for 3 years, and then I became the director of elections for the state of Alabama, and I managed the elections division. I managed 2 presidential elections and 2 state elections for statewide office. And at the time, as a result of the Bush and Gore uh, debacle that took place in Florida, there was a sweeping nationwide push to unify and codify all voting laws into one system, and it was called the Help America Vote Act. And I was given the challenge and the curse, if you would, of assisting Madam Secretary Worley in implementing those sweeping and very controversial and very game-altering changes to our voting system. Okay, so here again, I'm going back throughout the different counties of the state, talking with people about elections, trying to solve. Notice I say trying to solve problems in the election. And I will say this, which leads me to a bullet point that I would like to make before I get into my presentation, is that, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know people, you're going to fail. My bosses, not me, but my bosses have been the most powerful people in the state at the time. We think the governors and stuff are power. No, it's the people who hold the purse strings and the people who hold the influence over the masses of people are those people who have the power. And my mentor, he's still living, Dr. Joel Reed. And if there's ever anybody you want to do some research on, it's him. He would always tell me, and he still tells me to this day, Bobby, which is my nickname, Bobby, if you don't know people, you're going to fail. So to all of those people that are on this platform today, I'll say, if you don't know people, you're going to fail. And I mean a diverse group of people, not just other faculty, not just people at the university. You've got to get beyond the walls and meet some of the people whose lives depend on you being correct. Okay. So cutting my teeth with the labor unions, moving my way up in labor was a very powerful part for me. And then becoming a pastor. Okay. Being a pastor and being in the community and holding oneself available to the community allows you not only to get a lot of exposure, but it also allows you to get to understand people and what they really need. And there has been sweeping changes in the political arena that kind of nullifies that. And if somebody could remind me to talk about the nullification of that during the question and answer or whatever, I would. But being a pastor, going to people's funerals and weddings, and being in the community at very strategic times of when there's violence, when there's different types of tragedies, and when there are different types of celebrations and so forth, gives you an understanding of things. And that's very important because when COVID hit, a lot of things were disrupted. But human relationships, if they were strong, should not have been disrupted, although they were. So my initial question to you was, what was your response to the COVID realities? When COVID hit, what were some of the things that you did to try to respond in a very positive way to what you were doing, which kind of leads me to part two of my presentation. Okay. Another book I would recommend, I don't have it at this office, I have it at my other office, is a book called The Plague by Albert Camus. Okay, The Plague, and his last name is spelled Camus. Albert Camus, The Plague. And he talks about, and in my extended presentation, I'm not going to quote him today, he gives several quotes in the book which are very important. And one of the things is that plagues expose the weaknesses of all. And so while other things like war and famine and political unrest may exist without ever exposing the weaknesses of a people, a pandemic, a plague, an epidemic rather, exposes everything. And so COVID was an exposer. And one of the ways that I responded, because part of my time is spent in the Department of Languages and Literatures, is I chose reading to be a means of combating COVID. And I read The Plague by Albert Camus several times. And if there was ever a book written that I think most adequately defines the true nature of what COVID-19 posed to us, it was the plague. And so not only did I read it several times, but I also sent copies of it to my colleagues. And we had listening sessions and discussions like the one we're having now, simply on that piece of literature. And as soon as we came back to the university, as soon as there was an all clear given, we had a major meeting forum on just the piece of literature alone. So let me ask you all this question. When was the last time you had a mobilization of faculty and students and staff to discuss a book? To discuss a book, to discuss a piece of literature? Because a lot of times when you're politically inept, you become reactionary and you're reacting to what other people are doing or what other people are saying, and it becomes issue oriented, right? Well, what if there's no issue? The subject matter is actually analyzing and critiquing a piece of literature. And so that exposes people who typically would not even read to getting an understanding of very valuable points that could only be brought out by certain authors, right? So reading was one of my responses to COVID. And so in order for you to be a political organizer, okay, I would suggest to read Revolutionary Suicide by Huey Newton. I would suggest that you read Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. I would suggest that you read anything by Kwame Ture, or formerly known as Stokely Carmichael. I would suggest you read Up from Slavery by Booker T. Washington. I would suggest you read W.B. Du Bois's Souls of Black Folk, as if Souls of Black Folk was the only thing that Du Bois wrote. Saying read Souls of Black Folks by W.B. Du Bois is like saying listen to Thriller by Michael Jackson. I mean, he did far more than that, but I think that's a good place to start, okay? The Philosophies and Opinions of Marcus Garvey is another important piece of literature. So there were several, probably about 20 books that made up my bibliography on dealing with COVID, okay? Because so many Black Oasis, which is probably one of the best breakdowns of the George Washington Carver, Booker T. Washington dynasty at Tuskegee, and its all-out assault on the polio vaccine, on the polio epidemic. I think that's a major area of study. But reading and what are you reading lately was a major part of my response, and it's also a major part of the 4 elements of political organizing, because your knowledge base is going to have to broaden. And if we have people that are involved in STEM, that's very important, because response number 2 to COVID, which helps us with the understanding of the topic, was my joining research organizations, okay? I specifically joined very upper echelon STEM research organizations. Now, it required a lot of money to get in these things, and HBCU faculty are notoriously poor. We don't have research money. We don't get money for travel. If a faculty member from a HBCU shows up at some of your high-powered conferences, trust me, baby, they have paid their own way. And so for me to spend money on that type of thing, it had to be something serious. But it was very expensive to get in these forums. But as a lobbyist and as a government liaison, I understood the need to be in the circles where the conversations were being had. And these were all STEM people. Now, let me tell you something. And I've always said this, my mentors have said it, and I will also advise you on this. If you're the smartest person in the room, change rooms. Hello? If you're the smartest person in the room, change rooms. Because you're going to have to get somewhere where you have a diversity of experience, not complexion, not ethnicity, but now this is about money. This is about politics. So You're not talking about or worried about the way something looks. You're concerned with what the people know. And one of the things that I noticed about all of these STEM people, all of these people that deal with viruses and deal with pathogens and deal with all of this stuff, they had no relationships to the public and they had no relationships to politicians. Those are two fundamental things that I picked out about those groups. That when it came time uh, to engage government, they were lost. And when it came time for them to engage the public at large, they were lost. And so this pandemic revealed that fundamental weakness in the academy, that the academy tends to be very exclusive, elitist, bourgeois to its own detriment, because when it has to make the appeal and justify itself, it can't, because it has isolated itself from the two areas that are fundamentally critical to its survival. That is the government and the people. So my offering different pieces of literature, because I was the only social scientist in the group. Everybody else was STEM. And I don't know if your campus is like mine, but the STEM folks and the social science folks are like the Crips and the Bloods. We don't get along. We're very divided. We're very territorial. But the public loses because of our exclusivity. And if there's ever an example of the power and the positivity that could be generated if that gulf was bridged, would be the civil rights movement, because the majority of the civil rights personalities were actually STEM people. So just because you operate in the qualitative and quantitative, just because you operate in the exact sciences, that doesn't mean that same exactness can't be used when dealing with social problems and solving the issues that come from being a Homo sapien and an anthropod. So joining research organizations and paying the money and listening to their struggles was another part of this. Okay, so knowing that there are people who are receiving billions of dollars in research money, but have no idea on how to get the public to buy into what it is that you're doing, and trust becomes a major factor, which is the first element. Okay, so that was a response. Another response, number 3, was my students built an organization that's still in existence now called the HBCU Legal Focus Group. And this student-led organization was started to help undergrad students that were in my constitutional law class to prepare for law school. And interestingly enough, all of the founders of the organization either graduated from law school or about to graduate. And at the same time, the organization is still in existence, and it has become a very major anonymous moving force in shifting Alabama politics. And it's a part of the Anon movement. And I don't know if you ever heard of QAnon and all those things. Well, I learned that just means anonymous. So a lot of your best work is going to be done without being known. And the HBCU Legal Focus Group is not incorporated, and it exists purely on Zoom. And so it has students in it, faculty, retired lawyers, retired judges. Some of them you'll see in the pictorial that I'm about to do, retired activists or activists themselves. And our primary focus is prison reform. So we present papers on prison reform. We also tackle the anti-CRT, anti-divisive language legislation that's been permeating, which all but eliminates the study of Black history, at least so we think. We've done several response papers to that. We speak at public hearings. We lobby legislators on doing and not, on, here again, trying to get the legislation passed or failed. And we also write amicus briefs, and we help individuals who are struggling with the Alabama Department of Corrections and the criminal justice system. So that came about as a result of COVID. And there's some other things. that we've done, which leads me to what TACK really is. Okay. In order, and this is my opinion, in order for the university to continue to justify its existence, because corporate America is doing a number on the university. And another piece of literature that I would encourage you to read is called The Threat to Free Enterprise by Lewis Powell. It was actually a memo that was sent to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce on the role the social sciences was playing in the undermining of corporate objectives. So that memo is really the blueprint for what's going on now in trying to strategically and relentlessly erode the monies and the influence and the lucrative aspect of college. All of it is spelled out in that memo, all of it, every last bit of it. And one of the things it notices, and this is why I'm proud to be a social scientist, because it identifies the social scientist as enemy number one. It identifies the humanities teachers as being threat number one to national security. And I mean, and hey, and I understand that because we talk about stuff other people don't want to talk about, right? So I accept that. That's a badge of honor. But he identifies the personalities, mostly the social scientists, mostly the humanities people, as being threats because we're very charismatic, we're very activist oriented, we can mobilize people, we make speeches and write books that move mountains. And so he was like, you have to defund those people, you have to discredit them, you have to cut off monies for research, you have to do everything that they're doing. All of it is spelled out in you can just look up the Powell memo. Okay, so that's another source that helps us. Okay, so when we talk about TACK, we're talking about 4 things that we have to embrace in order to continue to justify our existence, in order for us to win back the public. And I don't even have time to talk about a lot of the things that have caused the public to lose trust in the institution, in the university. The walls of division between the university, even in the geographical environment that we live. My research partner is a geographer. And we've developed a concept called Civil Rights GIS. You can go to our website, highway80.org, and check it out. But we use GIS to tell civil rights stories. But one of the things that we notice is that a lot of the universities don't have a positive relationship with the geographical demographic in which it exists. That's one major issue. So how are the people going to trust you if there is no relationship? Even if what you're doing is some very valuable research on food deserts or prostate cancer in Black males or high incarceration and high arrest rates among minority men or whatever, how are you gonna get the message to the public if the public doesn't trust you and you don't have a relationship with them? So these 4 things build relationships that will homogenize into political organization. Number 1, trust. And my question to you, another question that I have for you, and I know I'm moving kind of fast because I got to cram a whole lot into just a short period of time, is do the public trust you? Does the public trust you? Do you have a relationship with them that builds trust? Especially if you're doing research in the community itself. What are some of those things that let me know that you're trustworthy, that the people trust you? Or as we used to say, if you got street cred, how are the streets, and I put that in, how are the streets responding to you? So trust is very important. How do you measure trust? Does your institution have tests for trust? By community people, not your students, but by the people in the community, the public at large. Do they look at you as an institution of help, hope, or institution of harm. This is a major problem with hospitals, especially in the state of Alabama, which are closing. We got hospitals closing in the Black Belt in droves. COVID revealed that too. They closed a lot of the hospitals, so people had to come to urban areas from the rural areas, which sucked the resources from the urban areas dry. But people were skeptical of the vaccines. They were skeptical about the care that they would get in the hospitals, not because of the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, but because of the everyday treatment that people, especially minorities, were receiving by a health industry that was becoming more and more adverse, distant, despondent to them. So where is the trust? Number two, where's the acceptance? TACK, C-A-T-K. Where's the trust? Where's the acceptance? Have you been accepted in the community as a partner? Because we throw these words around. We're partnering with these people. We're partnering with that people. Oh, we got to do a partnership. Oh, we got to do a memorandum of understanding. What does all that mean? Let me challenge you. Are you trying to build sustainable programs or sustainable relationships? See, because your relationships should outlast your programs. If you're going to build political organizing, your political organizing is not based on whether a grant runs out of money or not. The public, the people are looking for sustainable, meaningful, enduring relationships. So does your university present itself as being a base for the community to go and get help? Has your institution been accepted? How do you know when you're being accepted? Well, you know when you're being accepted, you're a faculty member when you work in the pre-med department or at the med school or in the biology lab, or you're in anatomy faculty, or you are in physical therapy or occupational therapy, and you're invited to a church to speak on the topic. Invitations are very telling. Does your city council invite you to come and give discussions on very important health matters? Do churches? Churches are very important. Do churches open up their doors to you to come and to share your wealth of knowledge with the least of these, my brethren? See, that was one of the legacies of Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King merged the academic, right? He merged the university and the people together into one. He came to Montgomery to do research on his doctoral thesis. He did not come to Montgomery to lead the Montgomery bus boycott. As a result of doing his doctoral studies at Alabama State University, in the very building where my office was located, one of the organizers of the bus boycott heard about him, that he was a visiting preacher, asked him to preach at Dexter King, which would become Dexter King Memorial Baptist Church, who did not have a pastor at the time. He becomes pastor of Dexter King Memorial Baptist Church and was anonymously elected without him being present at the first meeting of the Montgomery Improvement Association to become the spokesperson for the boycott. Where was King most effective? On college campuses and recruiting college students under the organization of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. You have to have trust and you have to be accepted. Who were some of the major players in the Montgomery bus boycott? University faculty, all of whom got fired as a result of their participation in the boycott. Mary Fairburke, Joanne Robinson, Dr. Lawrence Reddick, Thelma Glass, and others were fired for their participation in the boycott, but their participation was essential. For the Tuskegee movement, the voting rights movement in Tuskegee, which took place a decade before the Montgomery bus boycott, you had Dr. Gomillion, whose court case, Gamillion versus Lightfoot, is the flagship court case on redistricting. What's the #1 political issue in America today? Redistricting. You see? These were men of the people. Gamillion was a part of an organization called the Tuskegee Civic Association, which filed lawsuits, held protests. The longest protest was not the Montgomery bus boycott. It was the Macon County protest, which arguably still goes on to this day. So I want to give just a little bit of a pictorial, and we'll open up for questions. Hopefully I hadn't bored you all to death. Okay. This is a picture of me and my sister growing up in Tuskegee. And I just put this on here. It's actually from another presentation altogether. But me and my baby sister grew up on Tuskegee's campus. And you see me smiling and you see her looking like Michael Corleone from The Godfather. Well, that's because those are our personalities. So we both had our battles with racism and this, that, and the other. And I did mine with a smile and she did hers with a frown, right? So I thought that picture was quite telling. So I put that up there to show, and she's my protector, by the way, too. She's my enforcer. So that's my baby sister. Let me see if I can move forward here. Let me see. Well, here we go. All right. Here's a quote by Albert Camus in The Plague. And he was talking about when the change started to come. Please read that book, The Plague by Albert Camus, because the setting is in a town called Orion in Algeria. And it involved the emergence of a mysterious plague. And people didn't know where it came from. And the gist of the book is just how important people's day-to-day, mundane, routine activities, just how important those activities are, and how people consider a break in those routines to be a sentence worse than death. Very powerful. And so he says, this one quote, he says, "The change no doubt was slight. Yet, however slight, it proved what a vast forward stride our townsfolk had made in the way of hope. And indeed, it could be said that once the faintest stirring of hope became possible, the dominion of the plague was ended." Isn't that powerful? And so a lot of people are grasping for hope. And so I thought, and there are about 12 quotes from Camus that I use in my presentations. This picture was taken by Lynn Ball, who's one of the, because I know we got some reporters or people, the journalists that are here. He's one of the last remaining photographers who were on the bridge in the Selma March. And he gave me about 100 of his photos to publish in my books and to do in my research. And this is one of those photos. One of the benefits of teaching what I teach is people use you as a repository for their stuff. I've got rooms full of stuff dating back to the movement, and there's some behind me, but I can't show you because it's not viewable. But that's one of many photos that I have. You want to talk about intersectionality, right? When we talk about intersectionality, this is a intersection in Montgomery where Jefferson Davis, and E.D. Nixon streets, the avenues intersect. They actually cross. And we know Jefferson Davis was pretty much the father of the Confederacy, and E.D. Nixon was one of the fathers of the Montgomery bus boycott. Well, they intersect there at that juncture, and the Jefferson Davis street is now named the Fred Gray Avenue after attorney Fred Gray. Okay, so we've got acceptance, we got trust, acceptance, consistency, right? We have to be consistent with what we do. We can't just rely on grant money to do field work. We've got to stay consistent in the community. There can't be any breaks in our communication, and we have to be very intentional and very firm in making sure that these avenues stay open, okay? Now, my dad and my mom were both good examples of people whose lives merged STEM and the social sciences. My mother was an activist who and her with her friends in Chattanooga, Tennessee, uh, did sit-ins and boycotted their high school graduations. To sit in at the lunch counters in Chattanooga, Tennessee, my mom is on the right, and that Mustang I still had until a couple years ago. A hurricane destroyed it. But uh, so she sat in and was partly responsible, along with her friends, for integrating Chattanooga, Tennessee without any bloodshed and without any serious. She did get arrested, right? But she was very active in the community. Then she went on to get a degree in my mom was my hero, to get a degree in biology from Tuskegee. She did the electron microscopy work for the polio effort in Tuskegee, which saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Okay. So as a grad student, she was working in electron microscopy. I got that word right. And so she was one of the youngest electron microscopers in the country. And how many people can say that they worked on the HeLa cell research with Henrietta Lack to help squash the polio epidemic? My dad was a biochemist, and he was a master of spectrophotometry. Okay. I learned these words very early in life, dealing with them, right? Very early, right? But these were men and women of the community, right? And they were accepted in the community. These two people did tutoring for little kids. They did workshops. They did all types of hands-on things with the community. So my parents, I think, are the best examples of TACK. People trusted them. They were accepted in the community. They were consistent in what they did. And they were both scientists. So they had to have the knowledge. They had to have the base. And interestingly enough, my mom got her PhD. My dad got he became a lawyer too. My dad got his doctorate degree in law. But I think that my mom doesn't mind me saying it now. It was my dad who wrote her dissertation. It was my dad. my mom, she said, "Look, that's it. I ain't going no further." My dad was like, "Well, I'll write it." So I think I can say that now. My dad has passed away and my mom retired, so they want to take action they can. Okay. Now this right here you have to be in the community, right? Now we've got journalists here, I think, and the picture on the right is very important because Viola Bradford was one of the writers for the premier newspaper that documented the civil rights movement better than any other. It was called the Southern Courier. Okay, Southern Courier. You can look that up. Those articles, and that picture was taken from a month ago when the Southern Courier celebrated its anniversary and had a historic marker placed in downtown Montgomery, marking where its office used to be. And you had all these old school reporters that were still there, still living, and it was 100-degree heat. And they were giving an hour-long speech in 100-degree heat. But you got to understand they were 95-something years old, but they had been through a lot and they had an awful lot to say. You see? On the left is my mentor, my former neighbor, and we're still friends to this day, Attorney Fred Gray, who was Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks' attorney. He was also the attorney for the Tuskegee syphilis plaintiffs. He was the attorney that led to the okay for the marches to march from Selma to Montgomery, Attorney Fred Gray. And so I was interviewing him for the Frank M. Johnson Institute and its anniversary. So I have that interview if you want to watch it. Okay, there I am at the HBCU Review, which is a radio show that we created 10 years ago that does public relations stuff. And what we do is we take the classroom to the public. So we talk about classroom activities, classroom subject matter over the radio, and it gets a lot of feedback. And I'm going to stop with the photo in the middle because I know I've kind of rambled, but hopefully you pick up what I'm saying. That picture is with me and Nick Valencia, who was the Emmy Award-winning reporter for CNN. Okay, he and I are good friends, and he came down to speak to my class, and he gave a awesome speech to a standing room only crowd at Alabama State University, wherein he talked about his coverage of the George Floyd event, which led to him getting the Emmy. and all of the issues involved in this media complex that we have. Okay, so just reviewing, and then we'll take questions if you have any. I know y'all are probably tired of listening to me. There are 4 elements to political organizing, uh, all of which apply to the university and to the faculty, right? Which is who I'm talking to. You have to have trust. Do the people trust you? Right? Do you have good relationships with politicians? Do you know who your city council, who your county commission, who your state legislature, and who your congressmen are? Do you know what district you live in? Are you contributing to that district? Are you accepted by the people whose lives your research is expected to impact? Your subject matter. Are your subjects accepting of you, or are you just an outsider? Are you just there to get marks on your academic evaluations? Are you there to really help people? Are you consistent with your presence in the community? And do you have the knowledge? Are you up on the subject matter to where you can actually help and assist people in their day-to-day lives? So I'm going to stop talking right there, and maybe you might have some questions that may unlock some stuff that I haven't talked about. But thank you for listening.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. White, for sharing your framework with us. It was very enlightening. So we do appreciate that. I'm going to open up the floor for questions from our audience. So feel free to take yourself off of mute or raise your hand or use the chat to type in your questions. And we'll take some questions. While we wait for the questions to come through, I have my own, and I also took notes on the reading list per request, so I will put that in the chat. Here are the list of readings that Dr. White shared with us.
Yeah, that's some of them. Um,
Right. Okay.
France Fanon, Wretched of the Earth is another good one.
Great. Thank you so much. In your view, Dr. White, how can emerging scholars and science communicators apply the TACK framework into their efforts to help foster that creativity, that synergy between the community and their organization, and just really create some authentic engagement? From your experience, what has helped?
Yeah, you have to be formally trained, and training is so important in political organizing. Nobody pops out of their mama's belly knowing how to organize. And there's certain fundamental aspects of training, just like with everything else. But a lot of times when people get their PhD, there are 2 things that they're not prepared for a lot of times. Just because you have a PhD, that doesn't mean you can teach in and of itself. You may know the subject matter, but being able to teach it to a bunch of kids, maybe you might not be able to do that. So you actually have to be trained to teach. That's first. Training to be politically organized means that you have to go and learn the fundamental principles of organizing, which is self-interest. You're organizing around getting what you want. You're not organizing around making a good show, about making a statement, about, change. You have some objectives that you want to reach. And what objectives do educators want to reach? How are those objectives reached? And who are the ones that you have to engage, and when do you have to engage them? Which means that learning how to make your pitch, knowing who to go to for what, and organizing yourselves based on the gifts and talents that everyone has and the different areas where people operate in is very important. So I will say the number one thing is joining an organization, and I do training on that area. I do union organizing and political organizing training, and finding out where that training is and getting the training is very important.
Thank you. That's incredibly important. I agree. Operating within your competence and gaining the knowledge and being trained in it is really super important. What role do ethical leadership and value-based approaches play in advancing that community organizing and development?
Sure. Well, I mean, we're servants of the people,
Right.
And it goes back to the transactional versus transformational argument, you know, that is one of the foundations of the study of political science, right?
Mhm.
Uh, what is my responsibility? What responsibility do I have to myself? and the responsibility that I have to others, right? And so we think, and Edward Bernays pointed out, we only limit the scope of our influence to our own detriment to our students. I mean, our most of our point of references or our sphere of influence is just with those kids. And so I have 4 Facebook pages devoted to maintaining communication with my students, both past, present, and future, and with the public at large, because what we talk about in my class, the public needs to know.
Right.
And who these kids are and what they're capable of and what they're doing. People need to know that too, because, you know, people will look at a university as just being a diploma mill. They don't look at those graduates as being problem solvers, right? As being, in the Ghanaian word, osagifos, as being redeemers, right? As being people who can, like Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, save millions of people from starving by not only developing foods that can grow in different environments, by also creating the machinery to get the technology and the research out to the major companies that would adopt what it is that they do. You see? So these personalities that we have illustrate the ethical responsibility that we have. W.B. Du Bois, Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, you know, they Mary McLeod Bethune, they represent the ethical and the moral obligation that we have to heal our people. And you can't heal people if you don't have a relationship with them. So that's my answer to that.
That's very powerful. Yes, we cannot, assume that healing will take place unless we really foster and work on those relationships. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Dr. White, what advice would you give to leaders seeking to mobilize their science resources during this present time where a lot of the funding is being cut or limited? How can they support their public efforts and engagement? And what advice would you give organizations who are struggling
Yeah,
at this moment?
yeah. You're gonna have to become very resourceful and very creative. And your measure of prestige cannot be by how much money you bring in. And you'd be surprised at what you'd be able to accomplish with very little or no money. You know, but the question is that organizing properly and then preparing for the big payback. That's what we call it, right? Which means that in politics, you may do to me today whatever you want to do, but you can bet. I mean, you can take it to the bank that we're planning to take back over. And when we get back in power, we're going to do to you what you did to us. So you have to prepare to be in charge. Every move that you make, you're preparing and anticipating when you get in power, right? So your planning is based on what you're going to do when the pendulum does swing back in your direction, because we understand those physical laws, right? We
Right.
know when you release that pendulum on one side, it's going to swing, and then at some point, it's going to have to swing back, right?
Exactly.
So we're preparing for the big swing back. Y'all, we had in Alabama, we were in charge for so long. The Democrats were. And the major fights were within the Democratic Party, not between Democrat and Republican. The most brutal fights, because a lot of the people who are Republicans now in Alabama were previously Democrat. You see? So you can't fight, unless you're at the table. So a lot of what's taking place now is a pulling back. And so now the faculty have to push forward. They have to do the engaging. When it was time for them to try to eliminate the teaching of Black history in Alabama, we went directly to the public hearing meetings, and we let them have it. I mean, we hit them with artillery. We embarrassed them. We did everything. I mean, you see what I'm saying? That we could. And there were so many concessions made to where they actually gutted the bill. But one of my friends I call him my friend, he was on the other side, who was sponsoring the bill. His brother was actually point guard for my basketball team when I played on the basketball team in high school, right? He said, Bobby, he said, we're going to have to get this bill passed because our caucus is making us do it. But we're going to gut it to where you'll be able to teach what it is you want to teach, and we'll satisfy these people that we're doing this. You see what I'm saying? See, politics is the art of compromise. You see, and when it's time to compromise, you have to know what it is you're compromising and what you're not. You don't ever compromise your morals or your values, right?
You're right.
But you go in understanding those things that are negotiable. You see?
Right.
So I would tell the faculty, you know, to one, try to get your tenure before try to try to get tenure before, but do as much study, as much research, and get as much involved in the community as possible. Because you never know when your help is going to come from. And you getting fired might be stopped because you are a part of a community organization with the same person that knows your dean and will jump down your dean's throat if they find out that you got fired. It's just that simple. You have to build relationships, and you're doing it intentionally to influence the outcome of things. That's politics.
Right, very powerful. Well, everyone join me in thanking Dr. Robert White for his time and for sharing so much generously of his time and his experience. Thank you so much. I know that I thoroughly enjoyed this presentation, and we look forward to hosting our next few mentor chat series. So I did drop in the chat our schedule for the rest of the fall. So we welcome you all to sign up and to join our community. You can also find the SciCommers on Slack and LinkedIn. So please feel free to follow us. And once again, thank you so much, Dr. White, for joining us. Be well, be safe, and we'll see you next month, everyone. Take good care.
All right.